Hello, I'm Ernest Lee, author of Common Sense II, The Liberty Pledge. Please feel free to share this audio video on your Facebook pages, pass it around to your friends. You can get the free download of the text of this video at the libertypledge.com website. Also at the libertypledge.com website, you can find a downloadable PDF of the Liberty Pledge. Once you've watched this and understand it, you too can then get busy in the business of taking back America. Thanks for listening. Share this with your friends. Hope you enjoy it. Common Sense II, The Liberty Pledge, written by Ernest Lee, 2014 to 2015. We start with two quotes. The cause of America is, in a great measure, the cause of all mankind. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. Thomas Paine. To sit back hoping that someday, some way, someone will make things right is to go on feeding the crocodile, hoping he will eat you last, but eat you he will. Ronald Reagan. How we got here. I'm not sure exactly when I first became aware, then alarmed, at the condition, status, and direction of our nation. My astonishment nearly left me unable to act or respond. I was overwhelmed as I allowed myself to fully acknowledge the waste, corruption, and abuses of power that seemed to just spring up from all around me. The first question I asked was, when did it happen? Then, how did it happen? I also spent time in denial, thinking it is impossible for it to have happened in America. I went through several stages of disbelief, shock, then quickly moved to anger, then just as quickly to confusion and despair. Too much was wrong. The problems seemed overwhelming. No solutions seemed possible. Have you experienced the same emotions? Or are you just now becoming awake to the truth? The United States of America exists in name only. Every basic founding principle, right, and liberty has been corrupted, damaged, or taken from us. I suppose we should have expected it. Why would any of us think that history can be ignored? The only way to keep from repeating the same mistakes is to study and then learn from history. So what does history tell us? History tells us that most civilizations have a lifespan of about 200 years before they implode. Once again, American exceptionalism shows in our very age as a nation. It is a testament to the strength of our Constitution supplied by our genius founders. The Constitution, while not perfect, is not badly flawed. It is men that are flawed. The founders knew the weakness, evil, and greed of men and feared those traits where it concerned establishing a centralized government. They agonized over the delicate checks and balances outlined in the Constitution, and for over 150 years, the United States of America grew and prospered due to limited federal government. Two of the framers, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, reflected on the Constitution in their later years and came to the conclusion that they, the collective body of men responsible for writing the Constitution, hadn't put enough specific language in the document to ensure protection of the people against a federal government that could grow too large, too powerful, with the potential to rain tyranny down on the citizens. Jefferson and Madison were troubled by this, but agreed on two things. One, they had done their best. And two, the people could be trusted to rise up and put things right. But we haven't done that yet, have we? Have we waited until it's too late to act? We must pay homage to our founders because the grand experiment of establishing for the first time in world history a constitutional republic for self-governance of the people, by the people, for the people, produced the greatest nation the world has ever seen. The recognition of certain rights granted by God were the foundation of this experiment. by letting the principles of liberty, freedom, and personal responsibility, combined with a free market, hard work, and very few regulations or government restrictions that could limit personal growth, what was unleashed and established, not just for an elite few, but for any dedicated individual, was untold growth and prosperity as individuals and as a nation. So what has happened to the United States of America that was the greatest nation ever established in world history? We the people allowed our federal government to get out of control. We forgot that our rights, freedom, and liberty need vigilant watching and protection by us, the people. Being a citizen is not a spectator sport. We elected and put our trust in our representatives. Our trust has been betrayed. We the people forgot to pay attention. We trusted without verification. In essence, we betrayed ourselves. This has happened slowly over the last 100 years. In the last 20 years, the process of destroying this nation has been accelerated, with the killing blows coming faster and faster, with each blow stronger than the last. Our current administration is the most lawless in our history, but the source of our troubles is much deeper than this current gang of self-serving thieves in Washington, D.C. The biggest threat to our continued existence as a nation is that so few of us are aware of the extent of the problems that have been created. Not enough of us are aware and understand that drastic measures must be taken to save our nation. A further complication is the widespread apathy that knows no bounds within our educated, parentheses, to the problem, close parentheses, misinformed fellow citizens. It is my hope that this writing will help raise awareness not just of the problems, but also the steps I believe we must take to restore our constitutional republic before it is lost forever. Here's a quote. I hope we once again have reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. Ronald Reagan. Another quote. America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. Abraham Lincoln. A third quote. Government, even in its best stage, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. Thomas Paine. Back to text. We the people face our greatest challenges since our nation was formed. Through all our struggles in history as a nation, we've been winners because we have rallied together. Our strength comes from our diversity and ability to tolerate each other, stay out of each other's way unless help is needed. That is when we Americans really shine, with our willingness to help those that need assistance, and we're always ready to cheer for the underdog. There is something unique about the American spirit that goes back to our founding, and despite the efforts in recent years to kill the American spirit, it remains. Our spirit as a nation is wounded, bleeding, and some would say we are on the verge of collapse. Should we fail as a nation, it will be because we've been forcibly divided, and a house divided against itself cannot stand. We may be down, but we are far from out. This booklet is dedicated to the American spirit, our veterans, and our future generations. Let our valor-filled past remind us that as a nation we can accomplish anything, including turning this nation around, because we are Americans. Critics, I'm sure there will be many, will read this work only to bash it for being simplistic in nature. Let me address this. What I have written is my opinion. My influences in forming these opinions include a wide range of sources, all of which are readily available for anyone to read. Some of my research material was written centuries ago, some within the past few months. The conclusions I have drawn, the plans I outline are mine. It is your choice to agree or disagree. My opinions, reasoning, heart, soul, sarcasm, and experience are reflected and contained within these pages. What I hope you appreciate the most in this booklet, if you appreciate anything at all, will be my passion for this nation, what it stood for at its founding, what it's given me, and what it offers you and our future generations. As a nation, our future can be better than our past if, and only if, we can restore all that is good about America while ensuring its rekindled prosperity with action taken by we the people now. Let's look at where we are as a nation. Tens of thousands of pages could be written about what is wrong. This work will not address every problem. I'm not sure a single person exists that could actually point out all the problems. I also don't hold these pages up as the one and only solution or path that must be followed or else. This work, like myself, is imperfect. The reason I believe in these pages is because I have talked in depth to thousands of you over the last few years about how you feel where our country is concerned. Most were complete strangers. All shared one opinion. This country is falling apart and something must be done, but very few knew what to do about it. So instead of just listing problems, I am setting the stage for solutions to the problems we face as a nation. Another quote to close the chapter. The future doesn't belong to the lighthearted, it belongs to the brave. Ronald Reagan. Federal government control, the root of all evil. Our federal government was never meant to be the end-all, cure-all, final authority over the lives of its citizens or of private enterprise. In fact, the opposite is true. The federal government under our Constitution has very limited powers. Does it feel to you right now, today, that the federal government affects your life or business in anything close to a barely intrusive way? Do you feel that the federal government operates in a fair or efficient manner? Does its assumed control over a problem fix or improve the situation? Is a big, centralized, powerful federal government helpful or harmful? The truth is, our existing federal government is the biggest threat to the citizens that elected it. They are not our protectors. We hear the words, but feel the wounds the government has inflicted upon us all, from the slavery of welfare to the devaluation of the dollar, from our wide open borders to the loss of jobs, inflation that is already running wild, driving prices for everything higher, the increasing debt that will be a crushing burden for our future generations. All of this and more, all bad, courtesy of our federal government through its policies and regulations. I was lucky enough to be born, raised, and educated in what was once the greatest nation of liberty, rights, and freedoms in recorded history. But we've allowed this nation to drift towards certain failure and destruction, and now face the first generation that will be much worse off than the previous in all areas, due to the constantly increasing intrusion by government on all levels. Our federal government is eroding our core values as a nation, constantly expanding their power, robbing the states of sovereignty and the people of liberty. Out of control spending, increased regulation, corruption, overtaxation, the Federal Reserve, the EPA, and on it spirals with no end in sight, except for the collapse that is certain unless drastic changes are made very quickly. The running theme throughout Common Sense 2, the Liberty Pledge, is one of revolution. Not the bullets flying, people dying kind of revolution you might imagine, in parentheses, or even wish for if you are convinced that is the only way to fix things, close parentheses. The revolution I propose has already begun. It's constitutional. All that is missing for this effort to succeed is your participation. Our Constitution is not old, outdated, no longer relevant. Furthermore, it has not abandoned us. It is we that have set the Constitution aside, allowed it to be overlooked, violated and ignored by our elected representatives. We the people have allowed all that has fallen on us from government. Are you ready to change that? Do you have the will to make the changes? The tools exist. Now we must use them. Ronald Reagan once said the most feared words in the English language should be, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." There is only one branch of the federal government that has never, ever, ever, ever let we the people down. The military. When facing an enemy and given little interference from politicians, the United States military has done its job time and time again to protect this nation and freedom every time they've been called on to do so. How has the military been paid for their efforts? The Veterans Administration. Another feather in the hatband of the federal government and a perfect example of government good intentions having failed miserably. Andrew Wilkow coined a phrase that he uses often on his Wilkow Majority Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125 talk show. Government can't do God's work. Sometimes he extends the saying with, "and they shouldn't try." But we continue to allow them to try. They fail and we re-elect them. Madness. Our federal government does only one thing well. It self-perpetuates and grows larger only to the benefit of those in government, seldom, if ever, to the benefit of the people. The federal government of the United States of America was founded to do very few limited duties or services known as enumerated powers, clearly outlined in our Constitution. All other powers not specifically assigned to the federal government were to be retained by the individual sovereign states or the people. This is fact, not theory, not just my opinion. So how, you ask, do we find ourselves today with an out of control, too big, too intrusive federal government? We allowed it to happen. It did not happen overnight, but it can be changed. The bigger question is, do we the people possess the will to change it? We have the power and the authority. We even have the tools to do the job with. They were left to us by the framers, but we haven't used those tools. Why? Am I proposing a revolution? The simple answer is yes, but not a shooting war. We use the Constitution as sword and shield. We only have to be willing to fight the fight. Are you ready for a revolution? Article 5 of the Constitution is the revolution. Since our founding as a nation, we have been the most unique of experiments. Never before in world history has a nation existed with self-governance or been comprised of such diversity of citizens. The United States revolutionized the planet. Through innovation, genius, and hard work, our nation has prospered for over 200 years. The American dream could be had and enjoyed by anyone willing to work for it, with each generation better off than the last one until now. For about the last 100 years, progressive forces have been at work to turn our constitutional republic into a socialist state, a welfare state, and a nanny state that seeks absolute power over the citizens, with the fundamental transformation of America almost complete. Corruption is rampant at the highest levels. The executive branch is overreaching to levels completely unconstitutional and out of control, while the legislative branch seems not to notice or act with its constitutional duties or powers to stop the process. Hell, the Supreme Court ruled that Obamacare was constitutional. Do you even recognize this nation anymore? So what do? We revolt, but we do it constitutionally, peacefully, quickly, and efficiently, so as not to have this low point in our history be able to be repeated. It is time for we the people to assert our power that the ruling class of government has taken from us, turn it around, and take back America. Here's a quote. Government is not a solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Ronald Reagan. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. That was from Ronald Reagan as well. The next greatest generation. The 70th anniversary of D-Day had just been observed at this writing. Besides being reminded of the price paid for our freedom and liberty by members of the greatest generation during World War II, the event caused me to think how different, but also how similar our present circumstances are to then. Our country has a terrible enemy that threatens our existence. Our greatest generation fought against evil, determined to destroy our nation and rule the world. We face evil in our present that has waged a silent but deadly war for decades, designed to eliminate our way of life while replacing our values, families, and religions with centralized control. Worse, they have been successful in hiding their progressive agenda for our destruction while their plan was being accomplished. Worse still is the fact that they have been successfully winning every battle while most of our citizenry doesn't even realize we've been at war. The enemy we face today will stop at nothing to rule and control us. They are already brainwashing our children while they spread lies, encourage racism, and class warfare. We are told that our nation must be transformed by them through their regulations in order for our nation to be just and fair. Wrong is suddenly right, up is down, propaganda is spewed and spun by the left-leaning media that claims to report news. The news is filtered, altered, while real news is overlooked, downplayed, or ignored. Our elected leaders refuse to listen while holding themselves above us, superior to us, while lying to us. Their only interest is retaining their power. Their primary mission is to keep expanding their control. Once in office, they turn their focus away from their promises and concentrate on lining their own pockets and scheming on how to be reelected in each cycle. The quest for power, status, and self-serving goals are their top priority, while service to their constituents their lowest. You may wonder by my many references to war if I am proposing or going to propose an armed revolution. The revolution has already occurred, and we the people lost. The silent coup waged for over 100 years against us is now nearly complete. To borrow a phrase from Mark Levin, our nation is now in a post-constitutional phase. We the people have allowed this coup to run its course. The progressives, socialists, and communists won without firing a shot. Restoration of our constitutional republic is our duty, but time is running out to make the restoration a reality. Once you accept these statements for the truths they represent, you have several serious choices to make. I am proposing a counter-revolution that explodes from the grassroots, overwhelming our elected officials, starting at the local level, city councils, county commissions, then up to our state legislators, and applying constant and growing pressure for our states to assert their power and authority they hold over the federal government to restrain, reverse, and repeal over 100 years of progressive damage using Article 5 of the Constitution for our historical first Convention of States. It will take a concerted effort in thousands of localities to maintain the pressure to accomplish this goal, but the goal is too important for us to ignore. Choose to become a part of the next greatest generation, the group of citizens that awakened the resolve within themselves to stop the out-of-control federal government and total destruction of our nation. Your ethnic background, your religion, your marital status, your sexual orientation, your pro-life or pro-choice stance, your wealth or class status or lack thereof doesn't matter. Your current or previous party affiliation does not matter, because at your core, you are an American that believes in your God-given rights. You value and want to pass to future generations liberty and freedom in even greater measure than you enjoyed. Bottom line, you want your country back. That determination and success is what will make those of us that join together and participate the next greatest generation. Remember this: it will not take a majority to enable restoration, but it will take a tireless, dedicated minority of us willing to stand together, risking all, even our lives, to accomplish our goal. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is charging onward in spite of fear. Make the commitment right now to use the Liberty Pledge and do your part to ensure the success of this process. Here's a quote: "The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will." Vince Lombardi. Who is ready to reclaim our nation for its rightful owners, the people? Do we have the will, strength, and commitment to be the victors? Will we again rise up united against tyranny to guarantee our rights, liberty, and freedom? Will we regulate the ruling class back into serving us instead of dictating to us? I am past ready to turn the rulers back into the servants. I am sure the question racing through your mind is, how can we accomplish this? My solution is using the Liberty Pledge as the tool it was designed to be to help ensure success in calling a historic Article 5 Convention of States. Am I arrogant enough to think my solution is the only one? Of course not. I'm sure more ways exist to accomplish the task. In fact, the Convention of States Project, conventionofstates.com, is all over this problem and has been since 2013. Other groups have been formed with specific focus, such as balanced budget, term limits, state sovereignty, anti-abortion, and many, many more. All restoration organizations from all sides of the political spectrum need to unite towards a common goal. Even if your organization refuses to affiliate or associate with this effort, do it on your own. Using the Liberty Pledge as designed is a link in the chain toward restoring our nation. It is what you can do to participate in the revolution I've outlined. I call on every branch and chapter of the Tea Party to participate. I call on every veteran and veterans organization to participate. I call on all religious and civic organizations to participate. In essence, I call on all patriotic Americans to rise up and seize this opportunity to restrict and restrain the federal government through the revolution that Article 5 of our Constitution offers us as a real and lasting solution to what is wrong with our nation. You will notice in the Liberty Pledge that the COS project, as well as Mark Levin's book, The Liberty Amendments, are highlighted. This is not to sell more books for Mark. I'm not getting a cut, but it is an endorsement of its well thought out suggestions for proposed amendments that will go a long way toward returning power to the states and to the people. The COS project is, in my opinion, genius in their concept and outline on how to be successful in bringing about the Article 5 process for the people. At this writing, the project has a great start, but needs all of our support to succeed and speed up the process. I do not speak for Mark Levin or the Convention of States project in any capacity other than giving my endorsement of both. Sadly, apathy knows no boundaries in our nation. Some people won't finish reading this short work because they don't care. They are too busy, or they think it is someone else's problem, duty, or responsibility. Others of them will agree completely, but still do nothing. They won't ask questions. They will object on scarce knowledge. They have no imagination or vision. They will refuse to believe, or worse, believe things that are not true about what an Article 5 Convention of States is and was designed by our founders to do. There are several false facts and fears, untruths planted and spread by those in power that are extremely afraid that a Convention of States could actually become a reality and tear down their playhouse. What can I say to any of you doubters to change your hearts and minds? Probably nothing. To those of you that believe electing a new president is the answer, or that enough election cycles will be our salvation, I have a few questions for you. Do you truly believe the federal government, elected officials from either party, will ever downsize any part of government or willingly give up their power, privilege, and status for the good of the country and its citizens? Do you also believe that those in federal agencies will willingly downsize or recommend reducing their budget or authority for the good of the nation? Do you think Congress will stop exempting themselves from laws they passed that the rest of us have to obey? Do you believe that Congress will ever put term limits on themselves? Do you want to be a part of changing all that and more? If you do want true and lasting change, memorize and use this phrase from William H. Johnson as a mantra. If it is to be, it's up to me. Sounds too simple to work, doesn't it? Here's another true statement. If you will commit to an honest effort for just 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, together we can accomplish the seemingly overwhelming task of saving our nation. Yes, a total restoration of our constitutional republic that ensures our future generations can enjoy even more liberty and be free of all the burdens we have allowed the federal government to place upon us. Who can't find or spare a total of 1 hour a week for such an outcome? Can you? Will you? I will even explain what you can get done in just 10 minutes daily. The Liberty Pledge, demands of the people. We, the people of the United States of America, in order to restore our constitutional republic, stand united in making the following demands of our elected officials and those hoping to serve us by being lawfully elected. We view the Liberty Pledge as many things. It is intended to be a petition when signed by lawful citizens, as well as a pledge to honor the will of the people when signed by elected officials or candidates. The content of this document will also be used as a resolution, when passed by local, county, and individual state governments as acknowledgement and endorsement of the demands of the people. First and foremost, the Liberty Pledge is an affirmation that the Constitution of the United States of America be recognized as the supreme law of the land, and all that sign pledged to protect and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We the people further stress that the Constitution has boundaries that are definite and clear, and we will no longer tolerate the violation of its boundaries. We demand that all unconstitutional federal agencies be defunded, disarmed, and dissolved, with all powers that have been unjustly removed from the states and the people restored to their proper authority as stated in the 10th Amendment of our Constitution. We consider these federal agencies unconstitutional because, with limited or no oversight, they create regulations that become unconstitutional laws, while our Constitution clearly states that only the legislative branch can pass bills that only then become laws when signed by the President. The lawful method for the people to achieve these goals is found in the Constitution's Article 5. We the people demand under Article 5 of the Constitution that our state legislative bodies immediately call for a convention of states to be convened at the earliest possible date to propose amendments to the Constitution to further limit the power of the federal government using the convention call document of the Convention of States Project. Topics the people demand to be addressed include, but would not be limited to, term limits for House, Senate, and Supreme Court, repeal of the 16th Amendment, abolishing the IRS, and adding an amendment for a flat or fair tax, repeal of the 17th Amendment, restoring the Senate to its original intent of representing the state, balanced budget amendment, new legislation to be single issue in content, written in plain English with no added waste, pork, or special interest riders. English is our national language, and all other proposed amendments found in Mark Levin's book, The Liberty Amendments. Furthermore, the people demand that once such a convention is convened, it be recessed but never adjourned in order to speed up this process as and when needed in the future. Once amendments are released by the Convention of States, the people demand speedy ratification of the amendments by the state legislative bodies. We, the people, demand our liberty and freedom be restored and pledge to speak loudly with our votes against any and all elected officials that do not take seriously our demands or that do not carry out our orders. The people, through our state legislative bodies, created this constitutional republic, and we stand united in our efforts to restore our nation to its former greatness. All who sign and present the Liberty Pledge agree to seek solutions to our nation's problems and support all those that practice putting the good of the nation in front of personal interest. Current public officials need to carefully note everything the Liberty Pledge contains, because the will of the people shall no longer be ignored. You say you want a revolution. This chapter will be detailed but simple. Not all of you will do all I ask you to do. Some of you will do more. Some will exceed in greater measure than I ever imagined possible. Here is the complicated task I ask you to devote 10 minutes a day doing. Have a conversation with someone. Anyone, but start with people you know or you suspect agree with you. Ask them to sign the Liberty Pledge. Tell them how to find common sense too. Direct them to thelibertypledge.com so they too can spend 10 minutes a day duplicating your efforts. Do you think restoring our constitutional republic to ensure the future for your children and grandchildren is worth this effort? I suggest you print out and keep several copies of the Liberty Pledge handy to use. After you have exhausted your supply of friends and family members, strike up a conversation with a total stranger. I do, every day, with positive results. I realize it sounds simple, but that is the reason the Liberty Pledge will spread rapidly. It is simple to use as a tool. There's more steps. Some of you will go door to door gathering signatures and recruits. Others will set up a table or have clipboards and stand on a street corner or in front of a business or the courthouse. Just be sure you check your local ordinances and or get permission before engaging in those activities. But going to this extent, while welcomed and applauded, is not necessary. Talk to people one-on-one. Some of you belong to civic groups and organizations and can get your entire membership on board. Whatever works for you, big effort or small. Let's call that first paragraph Level 1 participation. Okay, you've gotten several signatures on your copy of the Liberty Pledge and have recruited several people doing the same. Now what? Sidebar. Sign every copy you give your recruits. Tell them to do the same. There is no problem if you end up signing hundreds of copies. The more the merrier, the larger the impact. There are leaders in every state, county, city, township, or community. Are you interested in Level 2 participation? Start a Facebook page. Name it the Liberty Pledge, your city, county, etc. And make sure all your recruits know about the page. On your Liberty Pledge Facebook page, post updates on the progress in your city and set a date to gather together all the signed copies of the Liberty Pledge. Get yourself on the agenda of your city council meeting. Go to the meeting, bring all the signed Liberty Pledges with you, and ask the city council to adopt the Liberty Pledge as a resolution of the council and get them all to sign it. Did someone else in your city already create a Facebook page? Great. Contact them and offer to help manage the page. Just because you weren't first doesn't mean you can't participate up to any level you wish, right? Now, are you ready to advance to Level 3 participation? You repeat Level 2, but this time your target is the county commission. You're on a roll now. Ready for Level 4? It's tougher because now your target is the state legislature. Let me suggest that as you become aware of other Level 2 and 3 fireballs like yourself in your state, you start trying to cooperate and coordinate your efforts. Don't forget to post your success stories on the main Facebook page, The Liberty Pledge, and sign the online copy of The Liberty Pledge at thelibertypledge.com. If all you ever do is sign the online copy, so be it. But that is lazy, just so you know. This movement can spread like wildfire, and it should. Let me make you several promises. Number 1, I'm not trying to form a large national organization. I'm not your boss. Number 2, I don't want your email address or personal info. Number 3, while I will provide updates and info, you are on your own. You will either participate or you won't. Signatures only on the Liberty Pledge. No addresses, no phone numbers, no personal info. Common Sense 2, the Liberty Pledge, was not written for the purpose of making money. It was written to be used as a tool to help set up the overhaul our system of government needs after 230 plus hard years of service. Imagine an engine from a car with 500,000 miles on it. The engine needs to be rebuilt because it isn't running properly any longer. Before you start the project, you need all the necessary tools to disassemble the engine to its block or core. The Liberty Pledge is a tool to assist in setting up the circumstances where we, the people, can fix through our state legislators what the federal government has broken in our system. I know tens of thousands of you or more not only agree the system is broken, you want it fixed before it's too late. I also know tens of thousands of you are willing to participate in getting the problems fixed, but don't know exactly what to do. Common Sense 2, The Liberty Pledge, was written to give you something productive you can do that will work. For a detailed explanation of the Article 5 Convention of States process, please go to conventionofstates.com. Mark Levin explains it expertly as well in his book, The Liberty Amendments. Some of you will want to join the Convention of States project after you research them. Others will be happy using the Liberty Pledge in support of the project. Participate at whatever level you are comfortable with, but for the sake of this nation and your children, do something rather than nothing. At the time of this writing, the COS project has been successful in 4 states: Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Alaska. These listed state legislatures have completed the call for a convention of states. But that doesn't mean you can't use the Liberty Pledge to reinforce and show support in these states. 34 states are necessary for an Article 5 Convention of States to be called. We have lots to do, and it must be done quickly. So get busy. Here's a quote. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Robert Kennedy. Another quote. The question isn't who is going to let me, it is who is going to stop me. That's Ayn Rand. Third quote. Above all, we must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. Ronald Reagan. 2 final quotes in this booklet. You'll hear a change of voice here in a moment. It's the section on About the Author. I just felt it would be weird for me to talk about myself in the third person. Here's the next to the last quote. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. That was Robert Kennedy. I will leave you with the final quote. Here it is. Do or do not. There is no try. That's from Yoda. Thanks for listening, and remember, share this with your friends. The downloads of the Liberty Pledge can be found at the website, thelibertypledge.com. Get busy. We can come together and take back America. Thanks for listening.
Ernest Lee is the father of 5, grandfather of 7. He lists those as his 12 reasons for writing this booklet. In his 60 years, he has owned food establishments, bars, auto dealerships, a weekly newspaper, and a radio station. He has also been a performing musician, taught guitar and voice, hosted karaoke, worked on a farm, herded cows, broken horses, driven everything from hot cars to buses to big trucks to combines to tractors and bulldozers. Ernest has held suit and tie jobs in big corporations and worked wearing t-shirt and jeans. He has lived in the Southeast, Midwest, and Western states. He has traveled the lower 48 states and Alaska in a big rig. For the last 6 years, he has been an over-the-road truck driver. He says, part-time, covering over 3,000 miles per week. He considers his full-time job to be working to restore our constitutional republic. During the 1,000-mile March for Liberty in 2013, he parked his truck and walked from Bartlett, Tennessee to Washington, D.C. because he says somebody needed to do something to start fixing this country. Also in 2013, Ernest participated in the Truckers' Ride for the Constitution and assisted veterans in removing the barricades that surrounded the World War II memorial in D.C. The veterans neatly stacked the return barricades just outside the fence of the White House without violent incident or arrest. Ernest constantly helps inform citizens to the problems in our nation while offering solutions during his travel and through radio broadcast on the World Integrity News Network. Details on broadcast times and how you can be part of the programs can be found on the Facebook pages: The Liberty Pledge, 1,000 Mile March, the Mission Patriot Freedom USA, and Reach Out America Radio Network Alliance. Ernest invites you to like and share these pages. Ernest is available as a speaker for most any gathering of any size. To contact Ernest, use email. His address is ernest@thelibertypledge.com. And a quote from our author: "All that is wrong will not and cannot be addressed in this brief writing, but I pray that it is a good start." End quote.